They laughed when my stepdaughter called me the loser pretending to be her dad at Thanksgiving dinner. 14 witnesses. One envelope. Her scream when she read it still echoes in my head. But that was just the beginning. My name is Nelson Hoffman. I'm 47 years old, and until recently, I was a senior supply chain manager at one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country. The kind of job that sounds boring at cocktail parties, but pays well enough that nobody asks too many questions. I've spent 2 decades making sure medications get from factories to hospitals without a hitch. Lives depend on it. Precision, timing, contingency planning, that's what I do. That's who I am. I met Rosalie 13 years ago at a charity fundraiser in downtown Chicago. She was elegant, funny, and tired in that specific way that single mothers get tired. Her daughter Brittany was 7 then, gap-toothed and shy, clutching her mom's hand like a lifeline. Rosalie's ex-husband, Brittany's biological father, had checked out emotionally long before the divorce papers were filed. He sent birthday cards when he remembered and child support when the court made him. That was the extent of his involvement. I thought I could be different, better. I thought if I showed up, if I stayed consistent, if I loved that little girl like she was my own, eventually she'd see me as more than just the guy who married her mom. For a while, it seemed like it was working. I taught Brittany to ride a bike. I sat through every dance recital, every parent-teacher conference. When she got her driver's license, I was the one who took her out for practice in empty parking lots at dawn, palms sweating every time she merged on a highway. But somewhere between middle school and college, something shifted. Maybe it was her biological father suddenly reappearing, trying to play dad when it was convenient. Maybe it was Rosalie's mother, Lorraine, who moved in with us 3 years ago and never missed a chance to remind me I wasn't blood. Or maybe Brittany just grew into the kind of person who measures worth by how much you give without ever saying thank you. I should have seen it coming. The eye rolls, the dismissive comments, the way she'd correct me in front of her friends like I was some clueless substitute teacher. Rosalie always laughed it off. She's just being a teenager, she'd say. Then, she's just adjusting to college. Then, she's just stressed. But I knew better. I knew because I'd spent my career reading patterns, spotting problems before they became disasters. And this was a disaster waiting to happen. I just didn't realize I'd be the one to trigger it. It started with headaches. The kind that wrap around your skull like a vice and refuse to let go no matter how much water you drink or how many pills you swallow. I ignored them for weeks, chalked it up to stress at work. We were rolling out a new distribution system across 12 states, and the pressure was relentless. But when I started losing feeling in my left hand during a presentation, I knew something was seriously wrong. The neurologist's office smelled like antiseptic and defeat. Dr. Reynolds, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and terrible news, pulled up the MRI images on her screen. "It's not a tumor," she said, which should have been reassuring, but somehow wasn't. "It's a vascular condition, an arteriovenous malformation in your brain. AVM, we call it." I sat there, watching her mouth move, understanding the words individually but not together. She explained that I'd probably been born with it, this tangle of blood vessels sitting in my head like a ticking time bomb. The headaches, the numbness, those are warning signs. "We need to operate, Nelson." "Soon." "How soon?" I asked. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. "Within the next 3 months. Maybe sooner if symptoms worsen." I drove home in a daze, the Chicago skyline blurring past my window. When I walked through the door, Rosalie was in the kitchen with her mother, both of them laughing at something on Lorraine's phone. I stood in the doorway, waiting for them to notice me. It took almost a minute. "Oh, you're home early," Rosalie said, barely glancing up. "Can you pick up dinner?" I didn't feel like cooking. I opened my mouth to tell her about the appointment, about the diagnosis, about the surgery I'd need. But Lorraine cut in before I could speak. "Make sure you get that Thai place Brittany likes. She's coming home this weekend." "Actually, I need to talk to you about something," I said to Rosalie. Lorraine laughed. "Oh Lord, here we go. What now? Did you forget to pay some bill?" Rosalie's mother had lived with us for 3 years, ever since she decided her apartment was too lonely. What was supposed to be a temporary arrangement had become permanent, and with it came a constant stream of commentary on everything I did or didn't do. She had opinions about how I dressed, how I talked, how I loaded the dishwasher, and Rosalie never told her to stop. "I had a doctor's appointment today. I continued, keeping my voice steady. There's something wrong with my brain. I need surgery. That got their attention. Rosalie set down her phone, eyes wide. What? When? Is it serious? They found an AVM. It's serious enough that they want to operate within the next few months. Lorraine leaned back in her chair, studying me like I was a particularly interesting specimen. Well, that explains a lot. I always thought there was something off about you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Rosalie laughed, nervous and uncertain. Mom, that's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying. Lorraine shrugged and went back to her phone. I stood there for a moment longer, waiting for Rosalie to say something, anything that acknowledged the weight of what I just told them. But she just looked at me with that expression I come to know too well, the one that said she was already thinking about how this would inconvenience her. So, about dinner, she asked finally. I left without answering, got in my car, and drove to the lake. Sat there watching the water until the sun went down. And that's when I made my decision. Not to leave, not yet, but to prepare, to build something they couldn't take from me. Because if I was going to risk brain surgery, if I was going to bet my life on the skill of surgeons and the mercy of fate, I needed to know that what I'd built wouldn't end up in the hands of people who couldn't even pretend to care when I needed them most. The law office of Russell Kent didn't look like much from the outside. A modest brick building tucked between a dry cleaner and a sandwich shop in Naperville, about 40 minutes from my house. But Russell had a reputation among guys in my position, men who needed things done quietly, legally, and permanently. I'd gotten his name from a colleague whose own divorce had gone nuclear. Russell doesn't fight dirty, my colleague had said. He fights smart. I walked in on a Tuesday morning, carrying a leather portfolio filled with every financial document I could find. Russell was exactly what I expected. Early 50s, salt and pepper hair, reading glasses perched on his nose, and the kind of calm demeanor that comes from seeing every possible disaster. Nelson Hoffman, he said, shaking my hand. Have a seat. Tell me what brings you here. I laid it out for him. 13 years of marriage. A stepdaughter who openly mocked me. A mother-in-law who treated me like the hired help. A wife who'd stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as a paycheck. And now, a medical condition that required brain surgery within 3 months. Russell listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and leaned back in his chair. What are you hoping to accomplish here? Russell asked. I want to protect what I've built. The house, my retirement accounts, everything. If something happens during surgery, or even if it doesn't, I need to know they can't just take it all and forget I existed. Russell nodded slowly. Are you looking to divorce? Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just want leverage. I want them to understand that respect isn't optional. Then we need to build what I call a consequence structure. Legal provisions that activate under specific conditions. It's not common, but it's absolutely enforceable if done correctly. Over the next 2 hours, Russell walked me through the possibilities. A revocable living trust that could transfer the house out of joint ownership. Amendment clauses triggered by documented disrespect or public humiliation. Beneficiary changes on my life insurance and retirement accounts. Financial support terminations tied to specific behaviors. The key, Russell explained, is documentation. Everything needs to be witnessed, recorded, time-stamped. You can't just claim someone disrespected you. You need proof that would hold up if challenged. I can get proof, I said quietly. Russell studied me for a moment. I believe you can. But Nelson, I have to ask, are you sure this is what you want? Once we start down this road, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. I thought about the headaches, about Dr. Reynolds explaining how they'd have to cut into my skull, how there was a chance I might not wake up the same person, or might not wake up at all. I thought about coming home and telling Rosalie I needed brain surgery, and her asking about dinner. I'm sure, I said. Russell pulled out a fresh legal pad. Then let's get to work. Thanksgiving arrived with all the warmth of a corporate merger. Rosalie had invited 14 people, including Brittany, who'd driven home from Northwestern for the break. Also present were Lorraine, Rosalie's sister Amanda with her husband, 2 of Brittany's college friends, and Brittany's biological father, Kevin Blair, making his first appearance at a family gathering in over a decade. I'd spent the morning cooking while everyone else slept in. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, all of it. By the time people started arriving, the house smelled like a magazine spread, and I was exhausted. Kevin showed up at noon with a bottle of expensive wine and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was everything I wasn't: tall, loud, confident in that particular way deadbeat fathers become when they decide to play dad for an afternoon. Brittany lit up when she saw him, threw her arms around his neck like he'd been there all along. "Dad, you made it." I stood in the kitchen doorway, dish towel over my shoulder, and watched. No one acknowledged that I'd spent the last 6 hours preparing this meal. No one thanked me for setting the table, for buying the wine Brittany liked, for making sure Lorraine's dietary restrictions were accommodated. We sat down to eat at 3. I'd placed myself at the head of the table out of habit, but Kevin took the other end like he owned it. The conversation flowed around me, people laughing at Kevin's stories about his new business venture, some consulting firm that sounded impressive, but meant nothing. Halfway through dinner, Brittany stood up with her wine glass. My stomach dropped. I knew that look, the one she got when she thought she was being clever. "I want to make a toast," Brittany announced. The table quieted. "I'm thankful for a lot this year. For school, for my friends, for my mom." She paused, looked directly at Kevin. "And I'm especially thankful for my real dad finally being here. Unlike the loser at the other end of the table who's been pretending to be my father for 13 years. The room erupted in laughter. Not nervous laughter, genuine amusement. Kevin raised his glass. Amanda giggled. Even Rosalie smiled, though she tried to hide it. I didn't move, didn't speak. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a white envelope, and slid it across the table toward Brittany. It stopped right in front of her plate. "What's this?" she asked, still smiling. "Open it," I said quietly. The laughter died. Brittany picked up the envelope, tore it open, pulled out the single sheet of paper inside. I watched her face change as she read. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hands started shaking. "What does this mean?" Her voice had gone from mocking to frightened in seconds. "It means," I said, standing up and folding my napkin, "that clause has been activated. Effective immediately. You got 30 days. Brittany looked at Rosalie, then at Kevin, panic spreading across her face. "Mom, what is he talking about?" But I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard Brittany scream. I didn't go far. Just out to my car, drove to the lakefront, and sat there watching the water turn dark as the sun dropped below the horizon. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Rosalie, Brittany, even Lorraine. I let them all go to voicemail. The document I'd given Brittany was simple, brutal, and completely legal. A notice of trust amendment activation, signed by Russell Kent, notarized 3 weeks ago. It outlined exactly what would happen now the clause had been triggered. The house, which Rosalie believed we owned together, was actually held in a revocable trust with me as the sole grantor. Her name had never been on the deed, something she'd never bothered to verify. The clause was triggered by documented public humiliation in the presence of witnesses. Brittany's toast, captured on my phone's voice recorder sitting in my jacket pocket, was all the proof Russell needed. The document gave them 30 days to vacate. After that, utilities would be shut off, locks would be changed, and they'd be legally classified as trespassers. My phone rang again. This time I answered. "Nelson, what the hell is going on?" Rosalie's voice was shrill, panicked. "Brittany's hysterical. She says you're kicking us out. That can't be real." "It's real," I said calmly. "You should have read what you signed last year." "What are you talking about?" "The trust amendment. The one you initialed while watching Netflix. Remember? You said, 'Just show me where to sign.'" Silence. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. "This is insane," Rosalie finally said. "You can't just throw us out of our home. It's not your home. It never was. Check the deed if you don't believe me." "Nelson, please. We can talk about this." Brittany didn't mean it. She was just trying to be funny. "Funny," I repeated. 13 years I've been the punchline. Rosalie. I'm done laughing. I hung up, turned off my phone, and drove to the apartment I'd quietly rented 2 months ago, a one-bedroom place across town that none of them knew existed. I've been moving things there gradually. Clothes, documents, personal items. Everything I actually cared about. The apartment was sparse but clean. I made coffee, sat by the window, and waited. Not for them to apologize. Not for them to understand. Just for the machinery I'd set in motion to do its work. 3 days after Thanksgiving, Rosalie showed up at my office with a lawyer. I was in a meeting when my assistant buzzed. "Mr. Hoffman, your wife is here with an attorney. They're asking to see you." I excused myself, walked to the lobby. Rosalie looked terrible, her eyes red and swollen. The man beside her wore an expensive suit and carried a briefcase that screamed litigation. "Nelson," the lawyer said, extending his hand. "Bradley Patterson. I represent Mrs. Hoffman. Is there somewhere we can talk?" We moved to a conference room. Bradley opened his briefcase, pulled out the trust documents, and spread them across the table. "Mr. Hoffman," Bradley began, "my client believes these documents were signed under false pretenses. She was told this was a simple refinancing, not a comprehensive asset transfer. I never said it was a refinancing. I said it was financial paperwork." "Which it was." Bradley's jaw tightened. "You deliberately misled her about the nature of these documents. I gave her every opportunity to read them. She chose not to, because she trusted you." I leaned forward, and I trusted her to treat me with basic respect. "How did that work out?" Rosalie's voice broke. "Nelson, please. We can fix this. I'll talk to Brittany. She'll apologize. Just don't do this." "It's already done," I said. The clause was activated. Russell filed the paperwork Monday morning. "You have 26 days left." Bradley pulled out his phone. "I'd like to speak with Mr. Kent directly. Be my guest." I slid Russell's card across the table. Bradley stepped out of the room. Through the glass wall, I could see him pacing, talking, his expression growing darker by the minute. He came back 5 minutes later. His whole demeanor changed. "This is enforceable," Bradley said quietly to Rosalie. "Everything was filed properly. You signed everything. I can fight it, but it'll cost you tens of thousands in legal fees, and we'll probably lose." Rosalie stared at me like I was a stranger. "Who are you?" "I'm a man you took for granted for 13 years. The one you let your daughter mock. The one your mother treated like the help. I'm just finally acting like it." "What about my surgery?" I added. "Remember that? The brain surgery I need in 2 months? Did any of you even ask how that appointment went last week?" Rosalie's face went pale. "You had another appointment. Pre-op. They scheduled it for January 15th. But you wouldn't know that because none of you bothered to ask." Bradley gathered his documents. "Mrs. Hoffman, we should go. There's nothing more we can do here." After they left, I sat alone in the conference room, staring at the Chicago skyline. My head was pounding again, the headaches coming more frequently now. Dr. Reynolds had warned me stress would make them worse. But for the first time in years, the pain felt worth it. The knock on my apartment door came at 9 p.m., 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. I looked through the peephole and saw Brittany standing there alone, her face puffy from crying. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "What do you want, Brittany?" She didn't answer right away, just stood there, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something in. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between us. I stepped aside, let her in. She sat on my couch, staring at her hands. "Does your mother know?" I asked. Brittany shook her head. "Nobody knows. Just you." "Who's the father?" Her face flushed. "Professor Daniels. From Northwestern. He's married. He said he'd help, but then he stopped returning my calls." I sat down across from her, processing. This changed things, but not in the way she probably hoped. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't know what to do. I thought maybe you'd help. You always helped before. Before you call me a loser in front of 14 people. Brittany's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I was trying to impress my dad. I didn't think you'd actually leave." "Your dad," I repeated. "The man who sent you birthday cards twice in 13 years. That's who you were trying to impress." "I know. I was stupid. But Nelson, please. I need help. The baby, school, everything. I can't do this alone." I stood up, walked to the window. Part of me, the part that had raised this girl, wanted to fix it. Wanted to call lawyers, find solutions, make the problem go away. But that part of me had been beaten down by years of being treated like an ATM. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, turning to face her. "You're going to tell your mother. You're going to figure this out together. And you're going to learn that actions have consequences. But the money, the apartment, how am I supposed to afford anything? That's not my problem anymore, Brittany. You made your choice at Thanksgiving. You chose your father over me. So call him. See if he helps. He doesn't have any money. You know that. Then I guess you should have thought about that before you humiliated me in my own home." Brittany stood up, desperation replacing sadness. "What about your surgery? What if something happens? Don't you want to make things right before then?" The mention of my surgery hit harder than I expected. The operation was scheduled for January 15th, just 6 weeks away. Dr. Reynolds had warned me the risks were significant. There was a chance I might not wake up. Or worse, that I'd wake up different. If something happens to me during surgery, I said carefully, you'll get nothing. The trust documents are clear. Everything goes to charity. The children's hospital where I volunteer. They'll get the house, the retirement accounts, all of it. Brittany's face went white. You'd really do that? Leave us with nothing. You already treated me like I was nothing. I'm just making it official. She left without another word. I watched from my window as she got in her car, sat there for 10 minutes before driving away. My phone buzzed. A text from Rosalie. Brittany just told me. We need to talk. I deleted the message, turned off my phone, and went to bed knowing that tomorrow I had a pre-surgery appointment, and nobody from my family would ask how it went. The next blow came from an unexpected direction. Rosalie and Lorraine were active members of St. Catherine's Church, the kind of place where social standing mattered almost as much as faith. They'd been going there for years, involved in every committee, every fundraiser, every social event. On Sunday morning, 2.5 weeks after Thanksgiving, they showed up for service as usual. But this time, something was different. People who normally greeted them warmly suddenly found reasons to look away. Conversations stopped when they approached. Nobody saved them seats. After the service, Father Mitchell asked to speak with them privately. I know this because Rosalie called me afterward, her voice shaking with rage and humiliation. They asked us to step back from our volunteer positions, she said. Because of the scandal. Can you believe that? What scandal? I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. This whole situation, with you kicking us out. Someone told the parish council about Brittany's toast, about how we treated you. They said it reflects poorly on the church community. I said nothing. This is your fault, Rosalie continued. You're destroying our reputation, our standing in the community, everything we've built. I didn't destroy anything, I replied calmly. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own actions. Who told them? Who went to the church? I had my suspicions. Rosalie's sister Amanda had been at that Thanksgiving dinner. She'd laughed along with everyone else, but I'd seen something in her eyes afterward. Discomfort. Shame. Amanda's husband had pulled me aside later that night, apologized quietly, said what happened wasn't right. Does it matter who told them? I asked. It happened. 14 people witnessed it. Did you think it would stay secret? Fix this, Rosalie demanded. Call Father Mitchell. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. No. Nelson, please. Lorraine is humiliated. She can't show her face there anymore. Good. Maybe she'll learn something. Rosalie's voice went cold. You've changed. You're not the man I married. You're right. That man let himself be disrespected for 13 years. This man doesn't. She hung up. 10 minutes later, Brittany called. Mom told me what happened. This is getting out of control. People at my school are asking questions. Someone posted about it online. Posted what? The whole story. About the toast, the eviction, everything. It's on some Reddit forum. People are calling Mom and me terrible things. I pulled on my laptop, found the post. Someone had written a detailed account of Thanksgiving, probably Amanda's husband, based on the specifics. The comments were brutal. Hundreds of people calling Rosalie and Brittany entitled, ungrateful, cruel. Make it stop, Brittany pleaded. Please. This is ruining everything. I can't make it stop. The truth is out there now. All I did was defend myself. By destroying our lives. No, Brittany. You destroyed your own lives. I just stopped cleaning up the mess. The viral post did something I never expected. It shifted the narrative completely. What Rosalie had tried to spin as me being unreasonable suddenly looked like justice. People started reaching out, sharing their own stories of being taken for granted, of finally standing up. By the time the story hit local news outlets, Rosalie and Brittany had become cautionary tales. And I had become something I never wanted to be, a symbol. But symbols don't need families. And with my surgery 6 weeks away, maybe that was for the best. January 15th arrived cold and gray. I checked into Northwestern Memorial Hospital at 5 a.m., alone. No family waiting in the lobby, no one hold my hand during pre-op. Just me, a surgical team, and a 50-50 chance of waking up the same person. Dr. Reynolds came by while they were prepping me. You ready, Nelson? As ready as I'll ever be. Anyone coming to wait during the procedure? I shook my head. Just me today. She squeezed my shoulder. You're braver than you think. The anesthesiologist started the 4. I felt the cold rush of medication entering my bloodstream. Felt the world start to blur and fade. My last thought before going under was simple. If I don't wake up, at least I died on my own terms. I woke up 12 hours later in recovery. Groggy, disoriented, but alive. A nurse was checking my vitals. Welcome back, Mr. Hoffman. Surgery went well. Dr. Reynolds will be by soon to explain everything. My brother called the hospital that evening. I hadn't told him about the surgery, but somehow he'd found out. Nelson, why didn't you tell me? I would have been there. I didn't want to bother anyone. Bother? You're my brother. Where's Rosalie? We're separated. Long story. She's not even here. After brain surgery. It's fine. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. Not really. The surgery had been successful, but the recovery would take months. Physical therapy, speech therapy, relearning how to do simple tasks. And through it all, I was alone. 3 days after surgery, Russell Kent visited. Brought flowers, sat by my bed. How are you feeling? He asked. Like someone cut into my skull. Otherwise great. Russell smiled. I have news. The house closed yesterday. Sale was final. Proceeds went exactly where you wanted them. The Children's Hospital. Every penny. $240,000. They're naming a ward after you. I closed my eyes, felt something close to peace. The house I'd bought, the home I'd maintained, would now help sick kids. Not Rosalie. Not Brittany. Not Lorraine. Kids who actually needed it. What about them? I asked. Rosalie and Brittany. They moved into the apartment you arranged. Brittany dropped out of Northwestern, enrolled at a community college closer to home. The pregnancy is progressing. She's planning to keep the baby. And Rosalie? Got a job. Receptionist at a dental office. She's working for the first time in 13 years. I thought about that. Rosalie, who'd spent our entire marriage shopping and lunching and volunteering, was now punching a clock, learning what it meant to earn your own way. They asked about you, Russell added. After the surgery, Brittany called my office, wanted to know if you were okay. What did you tell her? That you survived. That's all she needed to know. Russell stood to leave. Get better, Nelson. You've got a lot of life ahead of you. After he left, I stared at the ceiling, thinking about second chances, about what it means to survive something that should have killed you, about building a new life from the ashes of the old one. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in 13 years, it was mine to decide. 14 months after that Thanksgiving, I sat in a coffee shop in Denver, watching snow fall outside the window. I'd moved here 6 months ago, after my recovery was complete. Fresh start, new city, no ghosts. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Brittany. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. About what? About everything. About what happened. About saying I'm sorry. We met the next day at a neutral location, a park near downtown. Brittany arrived pushing a stroller, a baby girl bundled against the cold. She looked different. Older, tired, humbled. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded, looking at the baby. What's her name? Emma. She's 4 months old. We walked in silence for a while. Finally, Brittany spoke. I was wrong. About everything. About you, about my dad, about what mattered. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. What changed? Kevin came back. 3 months ago. Asked to meet Emma. Said he wanted to be a grandfather. I let him. He stayed for 2 hours, took some pictures, and I haven't heard from him since. The pattern repeating itself. Of course it was. But you, Brittany continued. You were there. Every day. Every year. And I treated you like garbage. Yes, you did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I lost. What we all lost. I looked at her, this young woman with a baby and no support system, working 2 jobs while going to community college. Life had taught her what I never could. I forgive you, Brittany. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger doesn't serve me anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. Can we stay in touch? Can Emma know her grandfather? The question hit harder than I expected. Grandfather. A title I'd never officially earned, but had tried to live up to for 13 years. Maybe someday, I said. But not now. I need more time. Brittany nodded, understanding. We said goodbye, and I watched her push that stroller back to her car, back to a life she was learning to build on her own. I flew back to Denver that evening. My apartment was small but comfortable. I had a new job, consulting for a pharmaceutical distribution company. The work was good, the people respectful. I'd started dating someone, a woman named Sarah who worked in hospital administration. She knew my whole story, all of it, and she'd look me in the eye and said, "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." On the anniversary of that Thanksgiving, I didn't think about the toast, or the envelope, or the screaming. I thought about the fact that I'd survived brain surgery, rebuilt my life, and learned the most important lesson of all. You can't make people value you, but you can absolutely refuse to be devalued. And that, I realized, was enough.